Hi, Rashonda here with Rashonda's Reading Room. We are reading. Ooh, sorry, I got I got a few things happening with my hair. We are reading Hagar's Daughter by Pauline Hopkins. We are on chapter 19. The last of March came, but winter still lingered in the lap of spring. Jules's couch was drawn up before the blazing fire. The parlor was snug and comfortable, just cozy enough for a semi-invalid. A semi-invalid. I mean, there's nothing wrong with her. She's just choosing not to participate in society. The room was half paneled with oak, and the furniture was of the same material, covered with bright silk and embroidered cushions. Jewel was not well and had excused herself from attendance at the president's reception. The president? I mean, if you're sick, I guess you're sick, but I feel like the president of the United States president, you would probably go to his party. Her mother had ensconced her in the small reception parlor, promising to return early and bidding her doze away the time until then. She was not asleep. Her eyes were open and fixed upon the fire. They were filled with intense pain and her hands were clenched, while now and then a shiver ran through her frame as she turned restlessly from side to side. Oh, I had forgotten she was sick and she wasn't going to go to the thing, and that and that Aurelia is plotting, but it hadn't crossed my mind that it was the president's thing. Like, I feel like I would go. I mean, if you're sick, especially in COVID times, stay at home. And I have stayed at home, but the president? Although maybe it's not a president she cares about. I don't know. She sought solitude that evening, and yet the sound of Sam's voice in the hall admitting a visitor whose tones betrayed General Benson was not distasteful to her. Now, we just learned how distasteful General Benson was to her, but this night it's not as distasteful. Oh, Aurelia. He was very much at home now and drew a low chair round between her and the fire, after bidding her good evening, took his place there and gazed steadfastly into her face a few moments without speaking. Of what are you thinking? He asked gently. I am thinking what a horrible thing it is that we women are always loving the wrong men, worthless, heartless men who cannot appreciate in even a small degree the love we waste upon them. Okay, tell me what you are really thinking. Excuse me. How often does somebody ask you what you're thinking? One, I know for me that does not happen very frequently. And two, I will tell them some of what I'm thinking or something that I had thought previously, or, just a tidbit. She just was out with it. She's like, this is exactly what I'm thinking. I don't know if I'm bold enough to make that move. Are you? If somebody walked up to you and said, what are you thinking? Would you tell them? I mean, I guess it might depend on what you were thinking. Let's ponder that. Like, what a bold move here, Jewel. He took one of her hands in his. Look at me, he said. You are very young. You will get over this happening, this episode in the life of every young girl. Don't start. How can anyone who cares for you help knowing that you have suffered through loving the wrong man? But time is a great healer. Now, don't try to free your hand. It must belong to me someday, so why not let it rest in mine now? Oh! She shivered as she turned from him. You don't understand, she said, speaking very low. My heart is dead, or only so much alive that I can feel it ache. I can never love, never marry. I must go on living, expiating my willful blindness in being so reckless as to love a villain with all my heart and soul. The tears rolled slowly down her face. Won't you let me try to comfort you? He asked. She shook her head. You cannot give me back the man I believed in, she replied. Benson rose, frowning heavily. Can't I horsewhip him or do something to punish the scoundrel? No, no. You don't love him still. No, she answered, but I can never hate him. Don't let's talk about it anymore, she continued wearily. Dead loves are like dead people. Talking will not bring them back. I will make you forget him someday, he said, kissing her hand. Do you really want to forget somebody you've loved, even if it ended poorly? And I mean, I've not had something end poorly like this, but I think of people I've loved and I'm happy for having loved them, and I don't want to forget that. I will make you forget him someday, he said, kissing her hand. I wish you could, she replied with a sigh. Benson felt encouraged and determined to follow up his advantage. What has put you in this state? He asked tenderly. Why are you not at the reception? She laughed evasively. That is not answering my question, he retorted. Either you need a doctor or your distress of mind calls for an advisor. Shall I hold your hand and see if I can mesmerize you into telling me all your thoughts? He continued, half laughing. Jewel drew back in alarm. She raised herself on her arm and looked away from him into the fire. You have no right to question me, as you know. Why won't you give me the right? He asked earnestly. Look, Jewel, I love you and trust you so much. I am ready to take you on any terms. Please, you're broke and you want her money. That's not love. And trust? You trust her? Maybe you do trust her. She has no reason to trust you. Look, Jewel, I love you and trust you so much. I am ready to take you on any terms. Is he really ready to take her on any terms? If her term is, I'll marry you, but I'm never going to love you, and the second I can get back with somebody else, then we're going to have a menage a trois? Like, what if those are her terms? I should be glad and proud to marry you tomorrow and wait for time to bring me love. Why will you tease me? She asked desperately. Be my friend without asking reward, but never hope to be anything else. So she's saying, be my friend and nothing else. And we have already heard of Aurelia, a man cannot be only her friend and nothing else. So this is an interesting contrast between the two women again. The girl was sitting now on the couch that had served her for a resting place. She bowed her head. The long silken lashes lay on her cheeks. He still held her hand, and as he gazed down upon her face, so pale and sorrowing, his pulses throbbed with greater passion. Jewel, you are an angel. Be one to me. You have many years to live. You could not, would not pass them alone. Be merciful then to one who worships the ground you tread. I know my heart. It is yours. None other can, shall ever share it, except my love and me, my darling. He was bending over her. His breath ruffled the soft rings of her hair. His feverish earnestness moved her. She felt a great pity for him. For the time, she forgot her repugnance. Aw, shucks, it's about to go down. He feels as I feel, she thought. What would she not have done for him in her compassion? Anything but what his lips pleaded for. That was impossible. I am so sorry, so very sorry, she said. And the light of her eyes, even the touch of her fingers confirmed her words. But you see, I have no love to give. Jewel, lightly he placed his arm about her. I give you my love. I ask but in return you. Let me have the right of loving you through life. I will be content, for I shall live in hope that my affection shall one day win yours. If you must think your whole first love given, let me hold the second place in your heart. I mean, okay, putting aside that he's just trying to get her for her money, you deserve better than being second place in somebody's heart. Everybody deserves better than being second place in somebody's heart. Is second love possible? She asked. Most surely. Okay, and second love is certainly possible, but at that point, that's still first place in your heart. It's just not the first person who had first place in your heart. Is second love possible? She asked. Most surely. Give me that. I will be satisfied. Her lips moved. A scent seemed to quiver on them when, looking up, she gazed directly into Cuthbert Sumner's eyes. He had been waited upon to the room by Sam and had stood there looking at them without being noticed, so absorbed had they been in their conversation. With a cry, Jewel staggered to her feet. Jewel, Jewel, hear me, cried Sumner in desperation. I pray you, before you part us forever, do not be rash, for God's sake. Let me speak, hear me. She waved him back as he stepped toward her. General Benson was bewildered. His active mind comprehended instantly the peril of the moment, the frustration of his plans if he hesitated an instant, and his ready wit saved him. It was the time for decisive action. With a swift movement, he placed himself at Jewel's side, took her hand in his, and thus faced Sumner. Mr. Sumner, this intrusion is unwarrantable. Miss Bowen is my promised wife. No, 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 nobody at any point said anything about that. And if Sumner was there watching the whole thing, he also knows that that is not true. Cuthbert bowed his head and turning, rushed from the room and from the house. To be continued. My goodness. Wow. All right. That was, what chapter was that? That was chapter 19. Whoo. I am Rashonda Kane. This is Rashonda's Reading Room. I can't wait until next time.